We've been reporting on the fighting and destruction created by the Turkish invasion of northeast Syria for a number of weeks. CBN's George Thomas interviewed CBN contributing correspondent Chuck Holton, who is fresh off the field from Syria, and tells us how the war is affecting Christians who still speak the language that Jesus spoke.
Here with me now is Chuck Holton. He's a contributing correspondent for CBN News, and he's just back from this part of Syria. Chuck, tell us how the people there felt about the U.S. troops leaving. How do they feel more than a month after the Turks invaded?
The fact that they were throwing tomatoes at the troops as they left kind of tells you all you need to know. They did not want to have to ally with the Syrian forces under Bashar al-Assad, but that's exactly what they did, just to avoid being wiped out. And they are still hopeful. I think you'll know that they are very optimistic people, and they're still hopeful that America will sort of turn around and change their mind. And they've been asking us to pray for that. When we ask them, how can we pray for you? They say, please pray that your president changes his mind and sends troops back in here to help us.
Why should Americans care about what's happening in northeast Syria?
You know, that's a really good question that I get a lot. And what my answer to that is this. A threat to freedom anywhere is a threat to freedom everywhere. And there's a moral component to this. If we sit back and, I don't know about you, but if you sit back and watch people being absolutely murdered, raped, their houses destroyed, and you have the ability to do something about it and you don't, well, you're not a hero, and you're, in my opinion, you'd only be half a man. So if we have the ability to do something about that, we should. And it's actually not very costly for us to have some troops in there. It's not very costly for us to put, I think long term, it's very good for our country to put pressure on Erdogan to not be allowing his forces to murder people in that area. So it's good for America. It's good for our foreign policy. We should stand by the people we've made commitments to.
In those areas, there are Muslims, Christians, Yazidis, Arabs, and other ethnic groups. Talk specifically about how it's affecting, how the war is affecting Christians in that area.
We talked to some Christians who had been pushed out of Serikania. That's that town along the Turkish border that the Turkish military surrounded and just pounded into dust. Once the Turkish military took that town, we got everybody out, and I was there for that. We got reports that they were going around and burning the homes that belonged to Christians. We saw that when ISIS took over Mosul. They went around and marked the houses depending on who had lived in that house, whether it was a Christian or a Shia Muslim or a Sunni Muslim. And if it was a Shia Muslim or a Christian, they either burned the house, destroyed it, or took it over. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this part of the world now. And that, you have to understand, that region is the oldest area of Christian influence in Syria, where people still speak the language that Jesus spoke when they go to church, Aramaic.
How can people pray, Chuck, for the situation there, and even can they make a difference where they are watching this program?
There are very few aid organizations that are going into that area now. That most, even the United Nations has pulled their people out because it's gotten so dangerous. But Samaritan's Purse is still in there. Operation Blessing is making a difference there. The Free Burma Rangers certainly are in there putting their lives on the line. And so people can help by joining with us at Operation Blessing and these other organizations. But as far as praying for them, that's the most we can do. Always. And we can pray that when people are in that situation, that number one, they would cry out to God. And that's what we tell them when we're there. So ask Jesus, even if you're a Muslim, ask Jesus and he'll answer you. And I think that God can work through these kinds of tragedies to call people to himself. And I think that's what we need to pray for.
Terrific. We'll have to leave it there, Chuck. Thanks for coming on the show.